had 5 years ago when I first started investing in stocks and shares. And we're going to cover this by thinking about investing in 10 different bite-sized steps. So the first one is forgetting about investing completely and just thinking, what happens to my money over time by default? And if you've studied economics, you'll know that your money loses its value over time thanks to something called inflation. Inflation is generally around about the 2%, 2.5% mark. And so that means that every year stuff costs about 2% more than it did the year before. For example, in 1970 in America, a cup of coffee cost 25 cents. But in 2019, that same cup of coffee cost $1.59. That is inflation in action. And so let's say you've got £1,000 in your hand right now, and for the next 10 years, you just stash it under your mattress and you never look at it again. In 10 years time, your £1,000 is not going to be worth £1,000 anymore because everything will have increased by 2%-ish every year. So the value of your money will have fallen. And so if you put your £1,000 under your mattress for 10 years, you will lose money over time. And this is obviously not good. Even if you put your money in a savings account, like these days, a savings account will give you like 0.2% interest, which means your money goes up by 0.2% every year. But because inflation is up by 2%, you're still losing money over time. And again, this is not good. Okay, so that begs the question, which is key point number 2, which is how do we stop our money from losing value over time? And the answer is that if we had a hypothetical savings account, one that was, let's say, an interest rate of 2.5%, that would match roughly the rate of inflation. So inflation means everything goes up by 2.5% in terms of price, but our money in our savings account also goes up by 2.5% each year. Therefore, we're technically not losing money over time. If you're watching this and you have an issue with the word interest, then don't worry, stick to it for now. Investment is not the same as interest, but we'll come back to that a bit later. But the point here is that we don't just want to not lose money, which is what happens at our 2.5% rate. We actually want to make money. And that brings us on to question number 3, which is, well, how do we actually make money? Now, let's go back to our hypothetical savings account. If hypothetically we could have a savings account that was giving us a 10% interest rate, this will never happen because that's just way too high. But hypothetically, if it did, that means that every year we'd be making 10% of the value of the money in our savings account. So for example, if I were to put £100 in a savings account right now, then next year it would be worth 110. And then the year after it'll be 121 because it's 10% of then the 110. And then it would be 130 something. And this would very quickly compound so that in 10 years time, my £100 will have become £259. And if we adjust for inflation, then our money is still worth £206 in 10 years time. This is pretty good. We have more than doubled our money by just putting it in this hypothetical 10% interest savings account. And it really doesn't seem like it would do that because 10% feels like a small amount of money. But if you extrapolate 10% over 10 years, you actually double your money, which is pretty awesome. Sadly, these hypothetical 10% saving accounts don't really exist because it's just way too high and real life is not that nice. These days, most savings accounts in the UK, and I imagine around the rest of the world as well, offer less than a 1% savings rate, which means you're actually still losing money over time. But we do have other options to try and get us to this magical nirvana of like,